Star Wars, Young Jedi Knights, Shadow Academy, Chapter 15. It was mid-afternoon by the time Tenelka returned. She found Master Skywalker quietly contemplating in the small slave's quarters Egwene Dojo had offered him to keep him from curious eyes during their meetings. "I've spoken with the Council of Sisters," she said. Waves of afternoon heat rippled up the cliffside to the fortress of the Singing Mountain Clan, giving the air of a flat, burnt smell. "They expected visitors to come at dusk. At that time, all of our questions will be answered." "Then we wait," Master Skywalker said, looking at her with his intense blue eyes. "It's one of the most difficult things to do, especially at such an urgent time, when we don't know what's happened to Jaina, Jason, or Lobaka. But if the waiting gets us answers where action would not, then waiting," he smiled, "is the action we must choose." Like a good guest, Tenelka busied herself with minor duties to help the Singing Mountain Clan as the hours crawled slowly by. The sun swung toward the horizon in dusk. Low clouds in the otherwise clear air burned pink and orange, scattering leftover rays into the heated atmosphere. Clicking insects and scuttling lizards began to move about as their world cooled with evening, fading faint rustling noises to the day's silence. On the lower tier of cliff dwellings, looking down upon the baked rocky plain, Tenelka and Master Skywalker watched the lengthening shadows cast by sunset across the desert. Compared with the bright reptilian hides Tenelka wore, Master Skywalker's brown robes seemed drab and nondescript. But she knew the strength and skill he harbored within himself. Tenelka noticed something dark and large moving across the plain. She perked up and squinted her gray eyes, studying the creature as it came closer. Some large beast bearing a rider. No, 2 riders. Master Skywalker nodded. "Yes, I see it. A Rancor carrying 2. Tenelka squinted again, then realized that Luke was enhancing his vision with the Force, sensing as well as seeing. Others from the Singing Mountain Clan came to their own adobe windows and stood on the cliff balconies, gazing down in nervous anticipation. The Rancor plodded forward, slow but unstoppable. Tenelka could clearly see the hulking monstrosity, whose knobby, tan-gray body seemed nothing more than a vehicle loaded with ferocious fangs and claws. A tall, muscular woman rode in front. Behind her sat a dark-haired young man with thick eyebrows, wearing a cloak of silver shot black, just like the woman's. "She's a Night Sister," said Tenelka. "I can feel it." Master Skywalker nodded. "Yes, but this is a new breed. Seems well-trained and even more dangerous. Something is happening here. I can feel we're on the right track." "But what is that man doing with her?" Tenelka asked. "No ruler of Dathomir could treat a man as her equal." "Well," Luke said, "perhaps things really have changed." Below, the Night Sister rider pulled the enormous Rancor to halt. The clawed, lovey-headed beast hissed and reared up, dragging its knobby knuckles across the baked hard pan. The Night Sister dismounted, and her black-robed companion slid down beside her. They stood between the 2 towering bronze rocks that thrust up from the sands. "Hear me, worthy people!" the woman called up from the cliffs. Her shout echoed among the rocks, reflecting her words and making her voice seem louder and broader. Tenelka wondered how the dark woman could speak so forcefully. She felt the Night Sister's tug on her imagination even as she stood and listened. "She's using a Force trick," Master Skywalker said, "pulling on your emotions, making you interested in what she's about to say." Tenelka nodded. A cool breeze, stirred up by the rapidly changing temperatures of evening, whipped her red-gold hair about her face. "Once again, we come to seek others interested in what we have to offer. Yes, we know that long ago evil Night Sisters ruled Dathomir with an iron hand and a cruel will. They were bad people, but that doesn't mean their training was completely wrong. That everything they knew about power is to be despised. I am Rondava, and this is my companion Villas. Yes, a male. I can sense you are shocked and surprised, but you should not be. From other allies, we have learned that this power we call the Force dwells in all things, male and female. Not only can the sister use it for their own benefit, but males, brothers, can also wield such strength. Many of the people of the cliff dwelling stirred. I sense your disbelief, Vanda Ra said, but I assure you it is true. Tenelka whispered to Master Skywalker. I have seen many things in the last few years, she said, but I believe I know how other societies work. But I fear that some of the more conservative clans of Dathomir are not quite ready to accept such measures of equality. Master Skywalker nodded, but pursed his lips gravely. There's nothing in Jedi teaching that favors either male or female, or even human, for that matter. Your people have only been deceiving themselves. Far below, Vanda Ra stood beside her tamed Rancor and shouted up, Villas, my best male student, will demonstrate for you one small thing he has learned, something that will amaze you. Dark-haired Villas removed his spangled black cloak and draped it on the patched wool-hide saddle across the Rancor's back. He began to concentrate, standing off to himself in the flat, baked dirt between the stone columns. His arms at his side, hands clenched into fists. Even from far up the cliff, Tenelka could hear Villas humming. Beneath the bushy brows, his eyes were squeezed shut. His black hair began to rise, flickering with static electricity. He rippled with glowing power. Up in the purple sky, stars had begun to shine through. Bright white lights against the darkening backdrop of the almost faded sunset. Clouds started to gather, faint wisps at first, like corded shadows across the sky that nodded and drew together. Tenelka stood back, and the breeze picked up and became colder. We are always searching for new trainees, Vanda Ra shouted up to the gathered crowd. The Singing Mountain people clustered forward in their windows and balconies. If any of you would like to learn the ways of the Force, to do what Villas and I can do, whether you be male or female, noble-born or slave, come join us. Our settlement is at the bottom of the Great Canyon, only 3 days' journey from here by foot. We cannot guarantee that we choose you, but we can test your abilities. We find with the right kind of talent, we will adopt you as your own. We teach you to be an important part of the machine of the universe. Your future can be bright if you are with us. As Vanda Ra finished, an ear-shattering peal of thunder drowned out her last words. Violent blue lightning danced in great forks that skittered across the sky. Villas had climbed one of the bronze rock pinnacles, scrambling up, light-footed as if someone drawing him up on cables. He now stood on the flat, weathered rock, arms raised. Static electricity whirled like a whirlpool around him as the thundering lightstorm coalesced at his bidding. More lightning flickered around the desert scape, striking solitary boulders on the flat pane, sending up showers of dust and sparks. The storm thickened, slashing at them with a cold wind. Tenelka blinked back singing tears as her hair thrashed around her. Villas stood atop his pinnacle of rock, commanding the storm. Clouds thickened, then turning the sky black. Tenelka looked down the cliff face and saw beside the lone Rancor, Vanda Ra had held her hands outstretched, palms up, fingers spread, calling the storm. Lightning came down across the desert. The Rancor snored and reared, but did not run. Come! The Great Canyon! Vanda Ra shouted above the screaming wind. If you want to touch power such as this, come to the Great Canyon. Villas sprang down from the stone pinnacle and landed with ease on the windswept desert sands next to the rearing Rancor. He and Vanda Ra scrambled up onto the patched saddle. Vanda Ra grabbed the creature's reins and yanked it about. The clawed monster looped off the distance as the storm continued to rage around the cliffs. Tenelka stared after, trying to keep her eyes on the dwindling silhouette of the monster and its 2 riders. So now we know, she said. What do we do? Luke put his hand to her shoulder, and she could sense his confidence. We go to this great canyon and offer ourselves as candidates. They are looking for new people to train. And now we're sure we're on the right track. Jason, Jane, and Lobacca might already be there. Tunnelcock bit her lip and nodded. This is a fact.